Hello everybody, I'm Kyle.
And I'm Everett.
And today we're going to be taking a look at the 2018 Genesis G90 Sedan. So Everett, you're sitting in the back seat looking like a king back there. What are your first impressions of the Genesis G90 Sedan, their largest, most luxurious vehicle?
Kyle, honestly, this is so comfortable being back here. We were just sitting there taking some pictures and stuff, and I honestly was starting to get sleepy because it's so comfortable back here. The amount of leg room and the controls with the seat, I have it reclined, so it's just fitting me perfectly, and I just feel encased in this cushion of goodness.
Yes, no, absolutely, and that's the thing. Another thing, just the build quality on this car is really high. I have a friend last night I took for a little spin, and it was pretty dark out, so you couldn't really see too much of the car, but she got in it and she's like, "Oh my god, I love this Bentley." And, and now mind you, she knows a little bit about cars, not super into them, but she knows enough to know a good car and a bad one, and she just totally thought it was a Bentley because of the interior was so nice and comfortable, So, but yeah, so obviously Genesis split off into their own brand to become a more luxurious brand, right? So before they were just with Hyundai, but then they decided again to split off and start introducing all their own models. So we have the G80, we have the G90. They're introducing a crossover. We're going to get a little sports car pretty soon too, a 4-door sports car to compete with a 3 Series or something like that. So it looks really awesome. We'll have to do a little video on that sometime too. But yeah, it's so good. It really. I've driven the BMWs, I've driven the Mercedes, the Audis, the top of the line ones, and this feels just as good from an interior build perspective as well as a driving perspective. So
yeah, and the features, kind of I touched on a little bit, just the features are crazy, with all the sunshades in back here, even on the quarter windows we have the sunshades, the rear sunshade. Right. The amount of
plus they're all automatic too.
Yeah,
they're not even automatic. You don't even have to use your hand. It's just all with the button. It's so nice,
just being able to kind of hit the button and it just does it for you.
Right.
And then also having the dual screens on the backs of the seats, super nice. The heated and cooled seats.
Like you were just saying, all of the seats have the heated and cooled feature, so both the front and the rear as well. Brings me a little bit to the value proposition of this car. Being, Genesis, a lesser known brand, they have packed a ton of features into this car at a really good price point. So basically your G90 starts around $70,000, and then there are really very few options you add to them because they all just pretty much come fully loaded, which is fantastic. So there is the all-wheel drive version, which we're in right now. They have a rear-wheel drive version. Maybe if you live in Southern California, you don't need the all-wheel drive. By all means, go for the rear-wheel drive. And also they have a 3.3-liter twin-turbo engine, which makes high 300s horsepower, I believe 376 pound-feet of torque at just 1,500 RPMs.
Yeah.
So, the twin-turbo there, able to just have a ton of torque at really low RPM spectrum. I've actually driven that one as well. Plenty of power, feels amazing. We are actually in the 5.0. Then the other one is a 5-liter V8. That's what we're in right now. Makes 420 horsepower, which is just phenomenal. You get that V8 sound, the growl. I wouldn't necessarily say that one engine is better than the other one. Obviously, the twin turbo 3 is a little bit more efficient, but at the end of the day, it really just depends on what you prefer. They're both excellent, and they both provide plenty of power. So
definitely. So Kyle, what kind of torque are we dealing with then with the V8?
So we have 383 pound-feet at 5,000 RPM. So, obviously, when you have all that torque in the twin turbo at just 1,500 RPMs, they feel really similar around in the city. Of course, you have the extra horsepower in the V8. Makes a little bit of a difference on the highway, obviously, with that extra horsepower. But again, at the end of the day, it's really just personal preference. I wouldn't necessarily even recommend one engine over the other. They're both really good. So. When they dropped this off, I was looking at it, and I was like, wow, like it just looks like a true estate sedan. You know, really elegant. That long hood, long sloping rear end. I also really like all of the LED lights that they've implemented into the car, right? So we have the front ones, which of course turn with the steering wheel on those dark roads, you know, as you're driving down. As you turn the wheel, the lights actually pivot to give you more brightness in that direction that you're headed, which is awesome. Then the rear lights, you know, looks a lot, I want to honestly say, like a Bentley Mulsanne, just the rear shape. You know, again, this reminds me of that large estate, you know, estate sedan, especially again with these large wheels, long doors, with how much space is in here. This, you know, this looks really, really fine.
Just like a really classy, sleek look kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, very classy, very classic look. I think that also that design really flows into the interior here. So real wood trim, very, very nice, very soft, very smooth. You can see the grain looks really high end. Everything is, you know, covered in nice soft metal or really nice soft rubber trim, right? So some of the buttons have this really, really high quality feeling rubber trim on them. It feels really good. And then the multimedia system, speaking about that for just a moment, is controlled by basically like an iDrive controller. It looks pretty much identical to a BMW iDrive. If you're familiar with that at all, and you just go through the screen prompts and you can look at the radio, the map, navigation. We even have a Sirius XM data, so you can check out things like the weather, you know, traffic, fuel prices, stocks, movies even. So, you know, probably not a ton of people are going to be doing that, but it's still nice to go say, hey, let's check out the weather or what have you. So heated cooled seats, the buttons are all right there. Heated steering wheel actually has 2 different levels, a low and a high. How many cars do you know, Everett, that have 2 settings for the heated steering wheel? I'm waiting. I'm still waiting.
I don't know, bro. I think you need to cool down, Kyle.
Oh, I need to cool down? I need to cool down.
Yeah, let me help you with that.
Oh, thank you. You just like playing with that little knob.
Yeah.
So, Everett, you're sitting back there, you know, what do you think of the color schemes and just, you know, the quality yourself?
I really like how they've kind of, I think, like accentuated the colors, kind of playing them off one another. They did like a really good job. I think with the Alcantara headliner, just that kind of like beige look really goes well with like the soft black leather. Yeah. And then kind of talking about the leather too, the stitching that they did really accentuated the lines that they've created inside. Yeah, no, I love the French stitching, especially like this, again, this like beige on the black, right? So obviously the black leather with the beige stitching, and you can really see the lines, like you said, it looks really, really good. So yeah, just like the neutral color scheme is like done really well, and then like the wood grain like really comes well into play with that as well. And then like lastly, the on the seats themselves, the stitching in there looks really good. You know, they have like this gray line kind of coming around stitched into the seat, and that looks really good as well. Yeah, like the piping on the seats. Yeah, it looks really good. Yeah, no, and that's again, when I think of BMW or something, it seems like something that they would do. And having it in this car, you know, like they didn't spare any expense. They just went all out with making it as, you know, I think as good as they possibly could. So that's again why I love this car so much. And I think the brand is going to continue to do really well because they're building such high quality cars and people notice it. It'll just take a little more time for people to really catch on and be like, hey, you know, that's awesome. So yeah. And then I also really, again, I just love how it drives, you know. It feels so smooth, especially with the V8. It just really floats right along, and not too floaty to where it's not sporty, right? So you can also pop this baby into, you know, with the drive mode selector, we can hit into the sport mode, and then you can feel the steering tighten up, the engine response quicker, holds the transmission shifts longer, and it really just becomes, honestly, a pretty sporty sedan. Again, it weighs, it weighs a lot. It weighs a lot, so you're not, you know, it's no sports cars, you know, swinging in and out of the corners, but it will, you know, it does stiffen up and gives you a lot of confidence when driving. So if you want to, you know, have a little fun on the road, curves, you totally can. So yeah. So the last thing too is just all the technology in this car. So again, I think I was mentioning
how it basically all comes fully loaded with options. So not only do we have all the luxury options, but we also have things like forward collision warning with auto brake. We have the 360-degree view surround camera, right? So when you're backing up, not only do you get the backup camera, but you also get the view from the top, really bird's eye view, which is awesome. Heads-up display too, with blind spot detection in there, so you can actually see not only in the mirrors but in your windshield from the heads-up display, oh, there's a car on the left or what have you. Laser-guided cruise control, and to top it all off, we have lane departure assist, which works really well, a lot better than the others. It will actually, if I have like no hands on the wheel, I'm on the freeway, it will actually steer the car back into the lane with little effort. So that's really a good safety feature. So all the features work really well together, and it's just really a great combination of luxury car and price.
Yeah, definitely.
So I feel like there are 3 key takeaway points to this vehicle, right? So first off, the value for what you get. So the build quality is there, right? So for $75,000, you get the largest, most powerful engine, all-wheel drive, every option you could possibly think of and want, right?
Yeah.
So again, not to even mention all the back seat stuff. A lot of times, like BMW, they charge like $7,000 for their rear seat package like this, right? And that's already included at our $75,000 price point, which is huge, I think. The other thing is that it's really not lacking quality, again, compared to the other German cars out there, even like a Lexus, if we want to compare it to an LS. It's just so good. The quality is there, and I'm not sitting in this thing thinking I wish it had this, or I wish this felt better. It's all there, which I think is really key. The other thing is that, again, they've given you 2 excellent power trains to choose from. We have the V8 or the twin turbo 3.3 liter V6, and then we also again have the rear wheel drive or all wheel drive, depending on what you want. So there's really nothing left to want. It's just more at this point of personal preference. Do you want to save $50,000-$60,000 to get a car that's just as good and just as fast? With the Genesis brand, which is up and coming, I feel like over the next several years, again, it'll become even more well known, and people will really begin to respect the brand because they just make such good cars. So what are your takeaways from the car?
Yeah, I think just kind of like it comes down to value. The build quality is there. It's like a really, really nice vehicle, sleek looking. Like the interior is great. You have a lot of features. I think it's just like really you can get that usability without the high price tag of like you're saying, like a 7 Series or the Mercedes. And I think they've done a really good job just in the quality of construction and what this car has to offer at its price point.
Yeah, and not to mention even just how quiet it is inside, which speaks to its refinement. The door sills are extra wide to keep the outside sounds out, and the windows are extra thick to keep again just that sound dampening. So it just really isolates you so well from the outside. And then with the stereo system, which has only God knows how many speakers in here, it sounds incredible. It's just one magnificent sedan as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, that's all we have for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed our review of the 2018 Genesis G90 5.0 Ultimate Sedan. Take care.